Geobacillus Stearothermophilus, and your Bacillus Atrophius. Say those 10 times fast. Hey Sterile Processing Professionals, Brandon the Sterile Guy here, and in today's video, I want to give you some education on biologicals. I want to talk about the different microorganisms that are inside, and also the characteristics of why we use these to test the efficacy and verify our sterilization cycles. Notice I said verify and not validate. Validation is done by the equipment manufacturer to actually ensure that the medical device not only does what it says it does, but also that it is able to be cleaned and disinfected and sterilized at specific parameters, and they validate that with third-party laboratory testing, which you do not have available at your hospital. Verification is the end user actually running those parameters and verifying that what the equipment manufacturer validated can actually occur in your facility. Validation, equipment manufacturer; verification, end user. I hope that's super clear because I hear a lot of people saying validate their sterilizers. It's not the right word. Is it the end of the world? No, but I want you to know what it is that you're talking about when you talk about sterile processing. We are verifiers, not validators. All right, so there are a lot of different biologicals out on the market. They all look different. You have green tops, blue tops, brown tops, pink tops. There's a lot of different variety of biologicals out there. Now the colors are actually standard when it comes to biologicals. So when you have a green top, that is specifically for ethylene oxide. When you have a pink top, that is your H2O2 vaporized hydrogen peroxide. Blue and brown are both for steam, where blue is for gravity cycles and brown is for prevac. Okay, now that we understand the different colors and the types of sterilization that is involved with those colors, let's go into the biological organisms themselves. Now, since the FDA uses the 10 to the negative 6th power as the standard for sterilization, which essentially mathematically comes out to 1 in a million chance that a single organism survives the cycle. It sounds really complicated, but that's what it comes down to. 1 in a million chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Now, a little fact for you, those little biological vials are fitted with a colony of at least 1 million organisms. So if your sterilizer completely kills that vial and it does not produce viable living organisms through your incubation process, then that proves that you met the 10 to the negative 6th power. Not a single of those million organisms has remained alive. Now, not only is it a million organisms, it's a million spores. So if you think about organisms, there's different ways that they can actually make themselves even greater resistant to sterilants and other things that could attack them. So one of those is developing biofilm, which you may have seen that prior video I did on biofilm, but also the process of sporing. Creating these protective spores can help organisms survive really unfavorable environments. Now, the two most common organisms that are used to test sterilization within the United States is your mainstream Geobacillus Stearothermophilus and your Bacillus Atrophius. Say those 10 times fast. Let's start with Bacillus Atrophius. This organism's history goes all the way back to 1950 and the United States Bioweapons Program. Ironically, the very sterilant this organism tests, ethylene oxide, goes all the way back to the Bioweapons Program too. This little bacteria, Bacillus Atrophius, is resistant to heat and highly resistant to chemicals, which was perfect for their program. EO, or ethylene oxide, was originally created in 1859 and then reformulated in 1931. If any of you know how dangerous ethylene oxide when it comes to birth defects, when it comes to cancerous properties, you might find it very weird to know that it was originally invented as a way to preserve spices. Now, ethylene oxide was later patented as a sterilant in 1938, which was 7 years after it was reformulated. And when I say reformulated, what I'm referring to is the process in which ethylene oxide is developed. And it was eventually discovered that Bacillus Atrophius was actually the perfect organism to test the killing efficacy of ethylene oxide. Now, this bacteria and this sterilant have a dark history all the way back to the US Biological Weapons Program, but ever since they have been integral in producing tons and tons of sterile instruments and supplies that have provided surgery to better people's lives and to save lives. And this process of using EO to sterilize supplies and instruments for surgery has nearly been a century now. One last thing. So since we know that ethylene oxide is highly dangerous and toxic, you need to make sure that if you use this substance in your facility, that you are following all the detailed rules to use this product. You can find a lot of information from OSHA on ethylene oxide. You need to make sure you have an alarm system that actually detects EO in the air. You need to have written protocols on what happens when there is a break in the ethylene oxide process, and you need to have your staff fully trained on how to handle that, to include the evacuation that must occur in your department if there is a break in that process. This would also include the extensive signage around your department, ensuring that people know that that chemical exists and is in operation. EO can be pretty scary stuff. Okay, let's move on to our little friend Geobacillus Stearothermophilus. This little bug is a rod-shaped gram-positive bacteria that is commonly found in ocean sediment, soils, and hot springs. Yeah, this little guy knows how to chill either at the beach or in the hot springs. So naturally, this little organism does very well with growth and just living its life in really extreme temperatures. It can be just super comfortable and reproducing and everything in temperatures up to 170 degrees. That's pretty darn warm in context. If you think about, let's say 140 degrees, if you put 140 degree liquid on your skin, within 2 seconds you'll have third degree burns. The longer you leave it, the worse it gets. So 170 degrees, it's much hotter. Now, one thing to note, Geobacillus Stearothermophilus is not the most heat-resistant organism that is alive today. Clostridium botulinum is actually resistant to heats much greater than Geobacillus Stearothermophilus. But the unique thing about Geobacillus Stearothermophilus is it actually works perfect in our sterilization system when it comes to time and temperature. It takes 20 minutes at 250 degrees to effectively kill Geobacillus Stearothermophilus. So not only are we reaching a certain temperature, we're reaching a certain time, which is actually really good when we're testing the efficacy of sterilization cycles. And that's not to mention that Geobacillus Stearothermophilus is also very resistant to hydrogen peroxide, vaporized hydrogen peroxide, which it is also used for. So it is multi-use and it fits our sterilization cycle really well. So basically, it kills two birds with one stone. I'm not sure if that's the greatest analogy for this context, but we'll go with it. So, ethylene oxide, green top. Geobacillus Stearothermophilus, blue top, brown top, pink top. Geobacillus Stearothermophilus is for steam and for vaporized hydrogen peroxide. One last thing, Bacillus Atrophius and Geobacillus Stearothermophilus are both absolutely safe for humans. There's no need to use gloves. There's not even a worry if the vial breaks and spills on your hand. You can simply wash with soap and water and use any hospital disinfectant to clean the surface. And you can verify this by checking the MSDS for both of these organisms or biologicals from 3M or ASP or wherever you get them from. I hope you enjoyed that lesson on biologicals and learned a little bit about why we test our sterilization, how we test it, and what we use to test it. Any topics or videos you want to see, please leave them in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I love you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.